What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Unpopular Opinion, and today we have ourselves another movie versus movie battle to see which is the best World War II movie from 1998. Today, we're comparing Steven Spielberg's Saving Private Ryan to Terrence Malick's The Thin Red Line. Guys, both of these movies are epic World War II films that tell the tale of American soldiers fighting overseas in World War II. However, they portray two sides, different sides of the same coin, because in Saving Private Ryan, our heroes are fighting the Germans in France, and in The Thin Red Line, our heroes are fighting the Japs in the Pacific. Two polar opposite combat experiences that our American servicemen had to face in the Second World War. So we're going to be comparing those today. Well, guys, not only did Saving Private Ryan and The Thin Red Line come out in the same year, but they also had to compete with each other at the box office, at the Academy Awards, and I mean, the fact of the matter is, in terms of World War II epics, those movies are always at odds with each other. People are always comparing them. So that's what we're going to be doing today. And in this video, it's a 10-round winner takes all to see which is the superior WW2 film. But guys, as a disclaimer, for those of you who are new to my channel, if you don't know how I run my movie versus movie battles, this is how I do it. The overall winner of this video, it's not determined based on if they've won the majority of rounds. I'm kind of like the Electoral College. It's the quality of rounds won by a specific movie that wins at the video, and also I do reserve the right to choose at the end of the video which one is better based on my opinion, regardless of how many rounds it won. So realistically, these 10 rounds, they're objective comparisons about objective facts in these movies, and then I'll throw in my final judgment at the end to see which one takes the round. So with that said, let's proceed. Round 1. Plot. So in Saving Private Ryan, it's 1944, the Allies just conducted the massive Operation Overlord and invaded Normandy. So the plot is this. There are brothers in the Ryan family. All of them are killed except one of them, a paratrooper named James Francis Ryan. He was in the Airborne, the 101st Airborne, and he missed his drop zone, and he was somewhere scattered amongst the other paratroopers and other soldiers in Normandy. They don't know where he is, but all of his other brothers, who are also in the service, have died. And in accordance with the real-life policy of the United States military, the sole survivor policy, a squad, an 8-man squad led by Captain Miller, is sent to go behind enemy lines and retrieve him, bring him out of combat, and send him home. That's the plot of Saving Private Ryan. The plot of The Thin Red Line, guys, I'm sorry, there's not really a plot to this movie. The closest thing I can conjure up in my head is it features soldiers fighting on the Guadalcanal campaign, and unfortunately, it doesn't really follow a structured plot. It doesn't really follow a storyline that you could, unravel to the end. It's not like Saving Private Ryan, where you know what's driving the plot, what they're doing, what the goal is, and where it's gonna lead us, and like, oh, one link leads to the next link, you follow the chain to the end. The Thin Red Line is pretty much just, it's the Guadalcanal campaign, and an ensemble cast of soldiers is fighting in it. That's really all we have. So, unfortunately, there's not much to compare to this, so by default, this round goes to Saving Private Ryan. Winner: Saving Private Ryan. Round 2, Protagonist. So in Saving Private Ryan, our hero, our main character, is Captain Miller. Guys, Captain Miller is the leader of the 8-man squad. He's our hero, he's our protagonist, and I like this character. I think he is one of the greatest movie heroes in cinema history. Not only is it because he's Tom Hanks, because I love Tom Hanks, but the fact of the matter is this: he's a great leader. He's the kind of leader who views himself, or he's the kind of leader who has the mindset of, every man who's died under my command, I'll use that as an experience to save other people's lives. So if I lost one man, I'll use the information, like, how did I lose this guy? Okay, I'll make sure not to do that again, and I could save 10 people's lives with that information. That's the kind of leader that Captain Miller is.
Do you know how many men I've lost under my command? How many? 94.
Also, he's the kind of leader who's stoic, he's tough, and he's the kind of guy who doesn't show his emotion around his men. He doesn't show his true feelings around his subordinates. Now, he's a sensitive, scared man on the inside, and he shows that in private when it's appropriate, but in front of his men, he's the rock. You don't mess with him, he's the captain.
We're not here to do the decent thing, we're here to follow fucking orders!
And I also like the fact that in the movie, there's a constant thing going on where the soldiers under his command, they don't know anything about him, and they're trying to piece together his personal life. life, and it's like a company pool. You don't know who the captain is, and if you can get the captain to tell you anything about himself, personal stuff, you win a big prize. And he uses that as a de-escalation tactic later on in the movie when the men in his unit are fighting and they're kind of breaking down in unity, and he's like, hey, you know what? You wanted to know where I'm from? I'll tell you where I'm from. I'm a school teacher from Pennsylvania. I teach English composition. I thought that was a pretty cool layer. It just shows you that this guy, he's a military officer for sure, but he's just a normal dude. He lives a normal life. He was a teacher. He has a wife. He wants to go home, and he's losing himself. He even says,
Just know that every man I kill, the farther away from home I feel.
So he's losing himself in this war, and he just wants to complete his mission because he's a dedicated soldier. At the end of the day, that's all he is. He wants to see this mission through to the end, and that's why Captain Miller is super cool. In the Thin Red Line, guys, I hate to do this again. There's really no central protagonist in the Thin Red Line.
Don't you bullshit me! Hey.
It's an ensemble cast, and by ensemble cast, I'm not using that term lightly. There's really no central protagonist. The cast is massive, and the perspectives is really split up and shifted between a lot of these different characters. Now, Sean Penn's character, Sergeant Welsh, he's top billed. He's billed as like the, starring Sean Penn, but he's not the protagonist. There's more focus on Jim Caviezel's character, and again, there's just no central protagonist, so by default, I have to give this round to Saving Private Ryan. Winner, Saving Private Ryan. Round 3. Characters. So in Saving Private Ryan, the main focus of the movie, it's on the 8-man squad led by Captain Miller. We have a pretty cool collection of supporting characters. We have the namesake of the movie, the title character, Private Ryan, who's introduced in the final act.
Barely hardly enough. Two of our guys already died trying to find you, all right?
You can tell he's a very dedicated soldier. He's very fierce. He believes in what he's doing, so much so that when they finally come to rescue him, he's like, you know what? My brothers might be dead, but that doesn't mean it doesn't absolve me of my duty, and I'm gonna fight with the final brothers that I do have left, my brothers in arms.
I need another bandolier! Anybody got a bandolier?
So that's a really cool aspect of Private Ryan. He's a dedicated soldier. He believes in the cause. We have Private Jackson, who's the sniper of the squad.
Where's this sumbitch?
And he's very religious, so he says a prayer in battle, and he'll quote the Psalms when he's shooting people, and I like that. We also have Corporal Upham, who's the translator in the squad. So he speaks French and he speaks German, and that's pretty cool, but also he's not combat tested. He's kind of like nerdy, and he's like what a white collar soldier would be, so he's not really a combat soldier. So that leads to a lot of interesting dynamics later on in the movie, and also he leads to one part of the film that a lot of people are like really mad about. He's responsible for the death of Mellish. Mellish, he's a Jew, and I like the fact that he taunts German POWs like Juden, I'm Juden, which is pretty funny. So he's kind of got like a big mouth, and he's got a good sense of humor, but I like him. Private Ryben is on the BAR, so he's the barman. He's got the machine gun, and he's got a big mouth. He's feisty. You can tell he's a New Yorker, and he's really like, hey man, I'm the outspoken one.
Don't mix them up, Jackson, all right? Keep them in your own fucking pile.
Why don't you just shut up, Rob?
And we've got Sergeant Horvath. Guys, Sergeant Horvath is a very loyal man. He's stuck with the captain since the Battle of Kasserines Pass, which means he's with the captain since North Africa. And you can see, because he carries around a collection of sand from places he's been. So you see North Africa, Italy, and now he's got France. So he's been with the captain for a long time. And even though, like, there are moments of hostility between Miller and Horvath.
Maybe I should go left, sir.
Maybe you should shut up.
Horvath never turns his back on him. In front of the men, he's never like, hey, I disagree with you, or hey, shut up. No, he's like, do what the captain says, and I will see this mission through to the end with you, and I'll follow you to the end, Captain Miller. And I really love that about this movie. So the collection of characters is awesome. We even have the medic, Wade, and a lot of other great supporting characters. I mean, we even have Ted Danson and Paul Giamatti, who make small cameos, which is great. So the collection of characters in this movie were really cool. And also, we've got the POW, Steamboat Willie. He was a POW that Miller's squad captures, and they beat him up really bad, and he kind of comes back later into the movie. But yeah, so for the most part, those are the characters we're working with in Saving Private Ryan. So in the Thin Red Line, guys, we have a massive cast of characters. Honestly, I could probably spend like 20 minutes on this round alone because of the Thin Red Line. We have Private Witt, played by Jim Caviezel, and Private Witt's kind of like the more open-minded, free-spirited soul of C Company. He's the kind of guy who despite being in a war zone. He's very graceful, very spiritual. He's got this calming, soothing presence to him where it's otherworldly. It's very hard to explain, and he's very spiritual, philosophical, I guess. He's the kind of person who has a lot of compassion. He's a very passionate person. He's very friendly, very loving. So when he's treating prisoners of war, he's not like ripping their teeth out or smacking them. Like, he's showing them compassion. He comforts people on their like last moments, you know, when they're dying. He comforts them and he ushers them into the next world. I think that's pretty cool. Then we also have Sean Penn's character, Sergeant Welsh. He's kind of like the rigid sergeant. He's like, you know, Captain Staros might run C Company, but I'm the guy who gets stuff done. Which is true, and I like him. I like how you see him unfold throughout the movie. He's like strictly business, and he's all like, there ain't no world but this one. We're on this world, okay? And also I like the fact that you can see throughout the movie he has constant run-ins with Private Wit. He has constant run-ins with Jim Caviezel's character, and it softens him up a little bit, and it opens him up, and it kind of, I don't want to say like wears him down, but it changes him. You can see the character perspective and the character shift and change in Sean Penn's character, and I think that's pretty cool. So he starts off as like super rigid and super like strictly business, you know, like, oh. And towards the end of the movie, it opens him up, and he's kind of like, you're a magician to me.
You're a magician to me.
I still see a spark in you.
And he's very enthralled by that. He's very captivated by Private Wit. But we also have Private Bell, who was once an officer before the war, and he was an officer, but you know, because of his relationship with his wife, he resigned his post, and then he had to join back up into the army, and now he's a private again, which sucks. So he gave up an officer position because of his wife, and then she ends up divorcing him, which is typical. It sucks, but he's a pretty cool, interesting character. He's a very brave guy. He's willing to lead men into battle. He's got a lot of great leadership qualities. I really like him. And we do have a lot of other supporting characters that I can get into, you know, like Woody Harrelson, Sergeant Keck. I really like this guy. He was pretty cool.
Chico, you get up right now, I'll kick you so hard in the stomach.
But I think the two characters that captivate me the most in the Thin Red Line would be Captain Staros and Colonel Tall.
What kind of artillery support do we have, sir? Over.
2 batteries of 105s.
They won't make a dent in that position, over.
Captain Staros, he's Greek, and he's the captain, he's the leader of the company of our main characters. And you can tell he really cares about his men. You see him praying the night before battle. He's like praying to God that there won't be a bloodshed, where he can save a lot of men. You see him comforting his men. He cares about his men. He's compassionate, so much so that he's willing to ignore orders from his superior and get in a lot of trouble just to save them. So he's a pretty cool guy, pretty compassionate guy. And he had actually, I really like this scene. He was kicked, you know, he got in trouble for refusing an order, and they, you know, his Colonel Tall kicked him out of service and said, you have to go home. I don't want you around here anymore. And when he's saying goodbye to his soldiers, he says something to them in Greek, and they're like, what's that mean? And he's like, it means you're my sons. I'm going to take you with me everywhere I go, and I'll always be with you. You live inside of me now. And that's really cheesy, and I kind of like hated in the movie for having like a lot of weird cheesiness to it, but I really like that aspect. He's kind of like a father figure to these soldiers. And let's talk about Colonel Tall. Guys, I might talk about Colonel Tall for a little bit too long. If you want to skip to the next round or the results, no hard feelings, but I'm going to be talking about Colonel Tall a little long here. So Colonel Tall is a very fascinating character because, well, frankly, he's an older man. He's been in the service for his whole life, basically. He's a career soldier who constantly, he says in his own words, and we see based off of his rank, he's been passed over for promotions, and he even has a general played by John Travolta condescendingly be like, oh, we need more men like you because a lot of people like you would have resigned by now. You know you're never going to become a general, and you're still willing to go into the combat zone. Good for you, old man. So you see that he's been passed over for a lot of promotions. You see that he's like, I've waited my whole life for this. I've trained at West Point, and now I finally have a battle. I can finally lead men into battle. I need to prove myself. And that causes him to do a lot of questionable decisions, to say the least, where there's a huge theme throughout the movie where the soldiers are low on water, and he's like,
The only time you worry about a soldier is when he stops bitching.
and he's willing to send his men into battle without proper water supply, so his men are dehydrated and weak, and he's like, I don't care, we need to take this, we need to keep fighting. Or like the conversation him and the dynamics between him and Staros were sharp throughout the movie. You know, Staros is more compassionate, more like, okay, listen, I know we need to get stuff done, but my men come first, their safety comes first, that's what's important. And Tall is more like, no, let's get results. Results are more important. Your men come second. And Colonel Tall, he's quick to send men into battle. He's quick to make them attack and do high risk maneuvers and high risk strategies. Even if it's at the like a loss of a lot of the men, he's willing to do it. And he's like, there's a conversation where they have, are you willing to sacrifice any of your men for the greater good? I think one of my favorite lines in the whole movie is Actually, my two favorite scenes involve him and Captain Staros. It's the scene where they're on the sound power and Colonel Tall's like, I need you to reinforce that hill immediately. When I say attack, I mean attack. Now you commit every man to battle. And you do it right now, god damn you. And then Staros is all like, sir, I must tell you, I refuse to obey the order. Like, that was a really cool scene. The dynamic between the two was sharp. And then finally, we got the scene where they're in the jungle alone in the hooch. And he's all like, I'm relieving you of your command. You're just too soft. You're too soft fiber.
Look at this jungle. Look at those vines swallowing everything. Nature's cruel, Staros.
And I really like that dynamic of Colonel Tall. So you can tell he really wants to prove himself. He wants to achieve something, and he has that like kind of breakdown when he's talking to Captain Gaff, where he's like, I've waited my whole life for this. I've eaten untold buckets of shit for this opportunity.
I've waited all my life for this. You've eaten no untold buckets of shit to have this opportunity.
And so he wants to achieve this, but it's causing him to do bad things. So I'm kind of torn between him. He's like, is he a bad officer or is he not? Like, is he still leading his men into battle effectively because they are winning the battle, they are achieving results, but he's also kind of being a dick about it and sacrificing his men needlessly or not taking their complaints seriously. It's an interesting dynamic. It makes you think, like, is this guy really a bad guy or not? And it gives you his motivation. I really like that. So yeah, but like I said, the Thin Red Line, guys, has a lot of characters, and I could spend a long time dissecting them. We could be here for a while. But in the end, I'm going to give it again to Saving Private Ryan. I think the dynamics of the characters work very well. There's not too many characters, so you can actually keep track of them. The fact that they were all introduced in a way that you get to know them through their actions, you get to know them through their personalities being on display at small little Easter eggs, and doesn't make you work too hard to figure anything out. And plus, the thing about the Thin Red Line is, unfortunately, some of the characters, I don't even really know their names. I just know them by how they look or what they do. Like, there's this blonde guy who makes a lot of weird faces, and he's all like you see him throughout the movie. I don't even know his name. And I think like the characters are more interesting in Saving Private Ryan. And even though I really like the dynamics between Colonel Tall and Captain Staros, or Private Witt and Sergeant Welsh, it's not enough to tip the scale in its favor. So winner, Saving Private Ryan. Round 4, performances. So I'm just gonna make the bold claim that Tom Hanks's performance in Saving Private Ryan was probably one of the best in his career. I think he totally deserved the Oscar, not Roberto Benigni. Yeah, I'm gonna make that claim. Tom Hanks was amazing in this movie. His performance was amazing. Tough when he needed to be, emotional when he needed to be. He was the man. You can really tell the nervousness based off of the handshaking, or the sequences where he's under fire, or that one scene in the end where Matt Damon is like, huddling up and crying. That looked legit, looked really authentic. I think the performances in Saving Private Ryan, they were not cheesy. They didn't rely on stereotypes.
Captain!
Now this is bullshit.
Fall in!
And they were all very well done. I'm really big on great acting performances, and Saving Private Ryan was full of it. Now, in the Thin Red Line, sorry, there's a lot of cheese in this movie.
Fortunately, Jim, the fate of the company doesn't depend on one man.
The guy who plays the blonde dude, like I said, I don't even know his name. He, you know, I killed a man.
What did you write?
He was weird. You know, he was entertaining, but he was kind of like hyperbole. Nick Nolte, I found him fascinating from a character perspective, but there were times where he was laying it on a little too thick and he was a little bit overacting.
I want you to attack. I want you to attack right now with every man at your disposal. Now attack, Staros.
That's not enough to like destroy the performance. I will say the 3 best performances in the movie, because a lot of the other performances were either stale, normal, or kind of like cheesy or overdone. Kind of like the one guy who was dying in that one morphine scene where he's like wounded. He's like, I'm dying, I'm dying, I'm dying, I'm dying, son. Give me more, 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 give me more. Goodbye, goodbye, Sergeant. Goodbye. Like, that's not me being a bad actor. That's exactly how he performed it in the movie. Goodbye. Goodbye. There's like a lot of cheese like that, but the three performances to me that were really good was obviously Sean Penn.
You gotta be quiet. I came to help you, Tom.
Obviously Sean Penn.
Okay, well, goddammit, do the less noise.
As Sergeant Welsh, I really liked his monologue when he's chewing out Private Witt in the beginning scene. I really like how Sean Penn he was a really great screen presence. Woody Harrelson's character of Sergeant Keck, he went a little too soon. I always find it unfortunate that Woody Harrelson wasn't in the movie longer, because he knocked it out of the park. I love Woody Harrelson. Like, I love what he did with the role. His performance, even though it was short, was solid.
Do what? To capture some of these goddamn positions around here. What do you think?
And obviously Jim Caviezel. It's not just because he's Jesus and I have a soft spot for the Passion of the Christ, but dude, the guy, his eyes, they take you to another world. You look into his eyes. Like the scene where he's looking into Corporal Fife and he's all like, "You go. I'll stay."
We'll be all right.
Like, that was great acting. The grace that Jim Caviezel can bring to a role. The tranquility, the soothing presence of him is amazing. But again, unfortunately, those three are not enough to topple the genius that is Saving Private Ryan. So, winner, Saving Private Ryan. Round 5. Sounds and special effects. So, sounds and special effects in a war movie can make or break it. Basically, the whole movie is about gunfire, explosions, visuals, all that good stuff. And if it doesn't have good sound quality, it could destroy the quality of the movie. It really can. And I'm happy to report that both movies have fantastic sound effects, have fantastic gunfire effects. The explosion effects were all really cool. The visuals for both films were great. I think Saving Private Ryan's really big strength when it comes to this category of special effects would be like its combat wounds. You know, like the makeup and the special effects that go into the combat. Oh man, it's gruesome. And I also really like the noise for the MG42. Like if you listen to the MG42, it just sounds so legit. The small arms fire throughout the movie. I really love that in Saving Private Ryan.
Who's doing the shooting? Who's doing the shooting?
However, guys, in The Thin Red Line, don't ask me why. I don't know why. But the noise the Thompson makes, like, you know, when you're firing the Thompson, they have the Thompson, and I liked it better in The Thin Red Line. You know, like when Sean Penn's firing it. Or Private Dale's firing. I just really like that specific sound quality effect. I also love the sound of the artillery shells more in The Thin Red Line. The way they burst, it just sounded so much cooler to me. Especially in the background. Because the thing about The Thin Red Line is there's a lot of background noise throughout the entire film. A lot of explosions and shells in the background, much more than in Saving Private Ryan.
I don't know what's on way. Say anything to him when they're like that.
And it also has a lot of great volley noise where you can hear the footsteps or the soldier's gear clanking on itself, like when Sean Penn took his grenades off and he ran out into the open. Like the sound quality or like the water in someone's can. There's a lot of attention to detail in that small stuff, and I'm a sucker for that. And I don't know why, I just really like the gunfire effects better in The Thin Red Line. Like the sound effects, the explosions, all of that cool stuff. And again, that background small volley was just really, really good and actually kind of like soothing and satisfying in a weird way in The Thin Red Line.
I go!
Like just hearing the gear clanking or like people's footsteps and boots or the noise the dirt would make when people would pick it up or walk over it and the soldiers on patrol or the background jungle noises. It was kind of cool. So I'm giving this round to The Thin Red Line. Winner, The Thin Red Line. Round 6, direction. Guys, the funny thing about this round is both Steven Spielberg and Terrence Malick were nominated for Best Director at the Oscars in this, and Steven Spielberg won. And I think it was a very great, well-deserved win for Spielberg because I think the direction in this movie was awesome. It had first-person point of view perspectives, or soldiers are running on the beach and you could see, you know, the tunnel vision, or you could see Captain Miller's point of view, especially when like there was the explosion behind him and you hear like, and you see him looking around and the slow-mo and the tunnel vision. That was awesome. Also, the lighting used, the cinematography, the staging, all that art direction stuff, like that was crafted all perfectly by Steven Spielberg. This is one of the most finest films ever directed, and I think it's amazing. I think one of the greatest sequences of direction in like movie history would be the scene where Tom Hanks' his hearing was blown out and you see the soldiers fighting and he's paying attention. That was just a really amazing directed sequence. I really love that. Now let's flip it to The Thin Red Line. Guys, Terrence Malick, he had some pretty cool shots. You know, the direction in this movie was pretty solid. A lot like Saving Private Ryan. There was some slow-mo sequences or first-person point of views and a lot of cool landscape nature shots, a lot of B-roll footage of like a lot of people tend to forget, like when you're fighting a war, Mother Nature doesn't just pause for you. So there's stuff where there's snakes, the soldiers are encountering wild animals, or they're in the wilderness, and so you see, you know, crocodiles swimming in the opening scene, or like an artillery shell bursting and like small birds are injured. That's kind of cool. I like that. Like the tracking shots, or like when the cameras are on dollies just following the soldiers, that was pretty cool. And honestly, I'd say it's on par with Steven Spielberg. So I'm gonna give this round a tie. Guys, this round is a tie. Round 7. Music. So the music in Saving Private Ryan was done by the Emperor of Movie Music, John Williams, and he got an Oscar nomination for this. This is a fantastic musical score. It's really patriotic when it needs to be. It's emotional when it needs to be. It makes you inspired. It makes you sad, and it really is gripping and riveting. And it's also just an amazing composure of fantastic music, all done by the Emperor himself, John Williams. In The Thin Red Line, we have Hans Zimmer. He made a score. And guys, I have mixed feelings about the score in The Thin Red Line. There are some pieces that were really good. There were some pieces of music that were just fantastic and amazing. But then there's other pieces that really didn't fit the visual mood of what the film was supposed to be, or it was overbearing or a little bit cheesy. I don't know. I have mixed feelings of it. One score in particular I really like. I forget the name of it, but it was the scene where the soldiers are running through the jungle, and then it goes slow, and then it just goes great, and the people are just shooting, and they're like, get on the ground, get on the ground. Like the way the music just crescendos from there was awesome. That was pretty cool. Or Colonel Tall. He's kind of got like a little theme to himself. Like whenever he's on the sound power with Staros, you can hear it. I thought that was a pretty cool theme. I also like the song that the native Pacific Islanders were singing, but again, there's a lot of cheesy music that doesn't fit with the mood, or doesn't fit with the visuals of the film, and it's kind of distracting, or sometimes it's played too much or played at overbearing points. Oh yeah, I you know, some pieces of the score from the Thin Red Line were great, but I'm sorry, again, I gotta give it to the master, the Emperor, and that's gonna be John Williams. Winner, Saving Private Ryan. Round 8, Legacy. So guys, legacy, longevity, what you're gonna pass off beyond your years, that's what we're comparing. Saving Private Ryan, it made almost $500 million at the box office. It is oftentimes considered one of the greatest war movies in cinema history. It is beloved by people who don't even like history or don't even like war movies. It's just a great movie in general. Not only that, it won 5 Oscars, including Best Director by Steven Spielberg. It was a well-deserved, like, Saving Private Ryan has a really big fan base, and it is considered one of the greatest movies of all time. The Thin Red Line, guys, unfortunately, The Thin Red Line really wasn't that successful at the box office. I don't even think it made $100 million. Yeah, it didn't even make $100 million at the box office. It didn't win any Oscars, and in terms of fan bases, the fan base for Saving Private Ryan undeniably is bigger than The Thin Red Line. So in terms of longevity, I would say it's clear that Steven Spielberg's Saving Private Ryan has a lot more going for it. It made more money, it has a bigger fan base, and it had won more critical acclaim and more awards. So winner, Saving Private Ryan. Round 9, battles. So guys, we've come to the scene that every war movie buff has been waiting for. We're going to be discussing the combat of this film. And guys, the combat of Saving Private Ryan has always been consistently praised as some of the best ever put to film.
2 MG42s, 2 mortars, at 20, left 30.
In terms of portrayal, excitement, or realism, it's always constantly praised. You'll always hear World War II veterans saying how accurate it is, comparing what combat is. It gets the feel of combat right. Not only that, the visuals of how the battles play out are super amazing. The amount of effort that went into it. Almost everyone says the greatest movie battle in cinema history was the Omaha Beach sequence, which it's hard to dispute that. Now, me personally, I think my favorite battle in this movie was the battle in Rommel at the end, where they're trying to defend the bridge, and they're getting overrun by the Germans, and they're slowly losing men, and they're falling back, and then... That was super cool. And like I said in my bounty video, I am a sucker for acts of heroism and sacrifice in movies where a character at great personal risk themselves, like to themselves or himself, sacrifices himself for his friends and his comrades. And that's exactly what Miller did. So basically all the men under Miller's command defending this bridge were killed, or they'd fallen back, or they're run out of ammo, and the Germans are advancing, and a tiger is coming across the bridge, and he's wiring the detonator to destroy the bridge to save them, and then a shell bursts behind him, and he drops the detonator into the open, and, you know, everyone's like, what do we do? you know, Ryan's crying, Ryben's shooting it out with the Germans, and then Miller gets up and he walks and he exposes himself to enemy fire, and he gets shot and he's mortally wounded by the man who he showed mercy to and set free, which leads to the Captain Miller's Last Stand, which Call of Duty took a massive bit of inspiration from. Basically, he's lying mortally wounded, pinned up against a motorcycle, and a tiger's coming at him, so he just pulls out his 1911 and he's just firing, because he's like, I'm gonna die anyway, might as well shoot. And then the tank blows up and you're like, did I just shoot down the barrel and destroy this thing? And then it was a Mustang who dropped a bomb on it. Super cool, awesome stuff. I also like the sniper duel where Jackson fired his rifle and it penetrated the scope of the German and killed him. Awesome stuff. Like, the set pieces lend themselves very well to why these battles are amazing. Like, you get the battles in the city, battles in these towns, or like the rural setting where there's that machine gun bunker with the radar tower and they gotta knock it out, which honestly, I was a little disappointed that it was from the perspective of Upham. It would have been great if we saw them actually duking it out. You know, artistically it looks cool, he's looking through the scope, but I would have preferred it if we saw... I digress. The battle scenes were great. The gunplay was awesome. The explosions and like the soldiers running around is super cool. And the usage of the tanks and the anti-tank bazookas. Or they're smacking mortar shells to prime them and throw them. That is legendary. I love that in Saving Private Ryan. Now, in The Thin Red Line, I have mixed feelings about the combat in The Thin Red Line, namely because it kind of drags. A lot of the combat scenes kind of just drag on way too long, or, you know, they go on longer than they should, or they don't wrap up, or it's kind of like, okay, we get it, we can conclude this, and they don't. And then not to mention the fact that a lot of the music that I was mentioning earlier is played at inappropriate times, and it kind of ruins the authentic feel of combat, or like there's flashbacks interjected in like the battle scenes. I kind of have mixed feelings. There are some combat scenes that I really like. I will admit that a lot of the tall grass sequence, because that one battle eats up a lot of runtime. It's super long in the movie, where the soldiers are in the tall grass and they're advancing upon an unseen enemy. That's super cool. I really like stuff like that, because I'm a sucker for soldiers fighting in tall grass and shooting it out with an unseen enemy. Especially, I think the scene where they're hit, like the soldiers are hiding, taking cover in a grassy knoll.
What do we do now? We're right here. Maybe they'll set us up some reinforcements.
And then Woody Harrelson pulls the pin off of his grenade that's still attached to him, and he's like, and it blows him up. That was a really cool scene. And the subsequent argument between the soldiers after that of like, you gonna write to his wife? I don't know how to write a letter. And the shells are bursting around them.
You gonna write his wife? That's the company commander's job. It ain't mine. You out of your mind? I ain't no good writing no letters.
That was really cool. I love the artillery barrage before the first battle. Don't ask me why, but when Colonel Tall's on the sound power and he's like, I want to get that in that position, sir.
Oh, but it bucks the man up. It'll look like the Japs are catching hell.
That was so awesome. The displays of the special effects and the shells bursting. Oh, that was so cool. I also kind of like the ending river sequence. I mean, even though it really wasn't much of a battle, you just see the soldiers walking through a river and then you hear shells bursting in the background and they're in an exposed position. So Whit, Fife, and one other man, they go into the jungle and they encounter a squad, and it's more of like a little skirmish where the Japs are shooting at them and Whit kind of fires at them. He doesn't unload his mag. It's not even a full mag, so it's not much of a battle, but it's still a combat scene. That was pretty cool. I actually kind of like the scene where they're trying to neutralize the bunker on the top of the hill, and Captain Gaff is calling artillery on them like, Uncle Baker 1, Uncle Baker 1, left 200, 100. That was super cool.
Okay, we're gonna continue on up the hill to the right. Nobody fire.
But yeah, unfortunately, like the gunplay in The Thin Red Line, it's not even on the same scale as Saving Private Ryan. And unfortunately, the battles do kind of drag on a little too long, or they kind of take a little cheesy turn. Because there are some sequences that aren't really great. And yeah, so I'd have to say that Saving Private Ryan takes it, but there's really no surprise. Saving Private Ryan takes this round. Winner Saving Private Ryan. Round 10, historical accuracy. Guys, I'm not really going to spend too much time on this, considering the fact that both of these movies are historical fiction. Let's start with Saving Private Ryan. There's no easy way to say this, but outside of the Omaha Beach sequence, Saving Private Ryan's not portraying anything historical because, well, frankly, there was no Private Ryan, there was no town of Ramel, Captain Miller wasn't a real person, so Omaha Beach was very realistic from a combat perspective, but there are a lot of things that they did not include in the Omaha Beach sequence, and that's heavily condensed to basically be like a 25-minute sequence, when in actuality the Battle of Omaha Beach was an all-day thing. But to be fair, to be completely fair, obviously time constraints need to be made for the sake of the audience because no one's going to watch an 8-hour movie based on one thing. But outside of the Omaha Beach sequence, which I will say was done very well for the most part, it doesn't portray anything historical. Now, the movie was inspired by a true story. Key phrase, inspired by, not based on, because the true story is a lot different from the movie. It's the Nyland brothers, where same setup, the Nyland brothers, all of the brothers were killed in combat. One of them was still alive. His name was Fritz Nyland, and it's a similar setup. Like, all of his brothers were killed in combat, and a squad was sent to retrieve him because he was a paratrooper, and they got him, and they brought him back, and there was no grandiose final climactic battle for the sake of the audience. But in real life, his other brother, who his name was Edward, he was fighting in the Pacific. He was taken prisoner, and everyone thought he was dead, but he ended up surviving the war, so him and his brother, sole survivor policy, because there is a real life sole survivor policy in the United States military, but, you know, Fritz was thought to be the final brother. He was retrieved and taken out of combat, and then when the war ended, Edward came back, and he's like, I'm actually alive, I survived. So the movie, it was inspired by that. It's not based on, it's inspired by, so what I mean is, it took inspiration from it, and it took its own spin to create a historical story of it. So it's not about the Nyland brothers. So I would say visually it portrays World War II very well in the sense that the costumes, the guns, the weapons, the setting, that all looks pretty spot on and legit. But outside of Omaha Beach, it's not portraying anything historical. The Thin Red Line, it's kind of in the same boat in the sense that it's historical fiction. The uniforms look pretty cool. You know, the uniforms look legit. The fact is, it was Guadalcanal, so there's not going to be a lot of buildings and stuff like that. But the fact that there was, you know, they're taking the island because they need the air base, and it's very strategic for the bombing campaign and the Allies for the island hopping. That's said in the movie, and that's actually true, that the Guadalcanal campaign was extremely important, and it was like one of the first major Allied offenses in the Pacific. And they mentioned that, they referenced that, like, we need to capture this island because it's important for our bombers, it's important for defeating the Japanese, this is like how we're gonna do it. And that was something that was displayed. So the fact is, the movie is pretty much all about the Battle of Hill 210. Pretty much all about the Battle of Hill 210. And there's one segment in the film, like one little bit of film, that actually matches a historical photograph of the Battle of Hill 210. It actually looks a lot like it. And I thought that was pretty cool, small detail that Terrence Malick paid a lot of attention to that I very much appreciate. The uniforms look legit. The one major complaint, and this is like a nitpick, and if you're not like a history geek like I am, or like a history super nerd, you're not really going to care, you're not going to notice it, and it really doesn't matter anyway. The fact that this movie features M1 carbines, when in actuality, like, there were no M1 carbines in the Battle of Guadalcanal. Like, there just weren't. It's true to say that the M1 carbine rifle was issued in 1942, but priority was sent to the European theater, but there was no carbines on Guadalcanal. But that's like a minor thing that doesn't detract from anything. And the fact that the movie's all about just Guadalcanal, why we're there, the Battle of Hill 210. I think that just makes it, I guess on a technicality, more accurate than Saving Private Ryan from a historical perspective. So, winner, The Thin Red Line. Well, guys, we've weighed all the facts, and the results are in, so the winner is, drumroll please, Saving Private Ryan. Guys, was there any question that this movie was gonna lose? If you ask anyone on the street, anyone, chances are, you ask them, what's the greatest war movie of all time? Chances are they're gonna tell you it's Saving Private Ryan. It's just an objective fact that this movie is immortal and it's going to stand the test of time. It's gonna stand the test of time not only as one of the greatest war movies ever made, but just in general, one of the greatest movies, period. No question. It is constantly praised by veterans for its realistic, gritty portrayal of combat, for its authentic, dirty, graphic nature of how the battles are portrayed. It is always praised by that, and it's always consistently ranked as one of the most authentic combat movies you can ever watch. Not to mention the performances in this movie are on point. The filmmaking, the direction, all the effort that went into this movie, the art direction, the sets, the props, guys, top notch. Undeniable, amazing stuff. Guys, this movie's damn near perfect. I think it's aged very well. I'm telling you, this is an immortal movie.
Earn this. Earn it.
Now, The Thin Red Line, guys, to be fair, I did make a review on this movie a couple months ago. You should check it out. They'll be linked in the description below. But anyway, I made a review on it a couple months ago, and my overall attitude on it hasn't changed that much, but I will say this. It does live rent-free in my mind, and it has grown on me a lot, actually.
Did you say one more word to thank me? I'm gonna knock you right in the teeth.
But realistically, it's no match for Saving Private Ryan, and it's not gonna stand the test of time. The unfortunate thing is that it's a really slow movie, and it takes a long time to get to the point. And also, the fact of the matter is that there is so much B-roll or extra unnecessary footage or prolonged scenes that just drag on, and it hurts the quality of the film. Like, some scenes just drag on way too long, and that works against the movie. Not to mention, it doesn't really feel like a war movie when you're watching it. It's kind of overly sappy at times, or phony philosophy, and it doesn't really work well for war. And I can't get over the fact that it's a very slow-paced movie, and a lot of the scenery is just too much, a lot of unnecessary nature shots, a lot of B-roll, and some scenes drag on too much. The fact is, unfortunately, people's attention spans are shrinking with each passing year. So not only are people's attention spans shrinking and getting smaller, but that means with the passage of time, the ability of this movie to maintain an audience or retain a fan base, it shrinks. It shrinks with each passing year. So potential fans of the movie, it's not good for longevity. People are losing their attention spans. Their attention spans are shrinking, and this movie's kind of slow, and it's hard to get to the point. The potential fans and audience are just getting smaller and smaller as the years go by. And listen, you can get mad at that all you want, but don't shoot the messenger. That's just unfortunately true, that people's attention spans have shrunk so much so that they're not going to be able to properly enjoy this movie the way that it's supposed to be presented. Because unfortunately, it's hard to get someone to pay attention to a film that at times is boring. Like I said, especially when attention spans are shrinking. And honestly, I don't think that this movie's gonna be remembered or discussed by general movie lovers in the future. I guarantee this film is only gonna be remembered or discussed amongst hardcore super movie buffs or artsy-fartsy film professors who are dissecting old classical movies in a class or in a classroom setting, like a professional academic setting. So, I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. The fate of this movie is, it's only going to be known by hardcore movie buffs or discussed by film professors who have to talk about refined or, cultural, artsy-fartsy movies in a college setting. But, it's a good movie. It has a lot going for it. It's just, unfortunately, the audience for it is a bit niche. And I'm not saying that with disrespect.
You're like a son to me, John. I'm gonna make sure that you get everything that you deserve.
But in the end, Saving Private Ryan is superior. I think Saving Private Ryan made more money at the box office than its competition because it just did what every movie's supposed to do. It was entertaining, it was exciting, and it was fun to watch, and it was enjoyable. Not to mention, it was just a better viewing experience.
Tank Buster, sir. P-51s.
Angels on our shoulders.
So there we have it, guys. There was the Germany first policy and strategy during the real World War II, and that's the attitude I'm taking in this video. Germany first, hence Saving Private Ryan is the winner. So guys, that's my opinion. That's why I think Saving Private Ryan is better than The Thin Red Line. Thin Red Line does have a lot going for it, but Saving Private Ryan is superior. Guys, that's all I have for you. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you disagree, share it with me. Comment below. Let me know what you think is the better movie. Let me know if you think I'm wrong, because chances are probably a lot if you think I am wrong. But comment below anyway. Let me know what you think. Remember to like the video, subscribe, comment. Also, check out my Thin Red Line review. That's going to be linked in the description below. And check me out on Instagram. That, again, will be linked below. and give me a follow. Also, guys, I started a new YouTube channel. It's called Unboxing with Bob Phillips. It's basically where I open packages I got in the mail, or review collectibles or board games or Legos and stuff like that. If you're into that sort of thing, subscribe to that channel. Again, linked below. And I'll see you there. Guys, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time on the next Unpopular Opinion.